Snow hammered against the windows of New York Presbyterian Hospital, turning Manhattan into a blur of white and sirens. Inside the dim delivery room, Madison Hale lay trembling, her breath shallow, her skin drained of every ounce of warmth. She wasn't supposed to give birth tonight. She wasn't supposed to be alone. But labor didn't wait for anyone, not even for a husband who had vanished hours earlier. The monitors beeped violently as another contraction ripped through her. Nurses rushed around, calling for the attending physician. "Triplets, she's crowning," one shouted. Madison tried to focus, but the fear swallowed her whole. She had imagined this night differently. Asher holding her hand, whispering encouragement, promising they were in this together. Instead, her phone lay silent on the side table, his last message echoing in her mind. "Don't call me. Handle it yourself. 1. ID Nover. Exprode. To hover." Minutes later, after pain so fierce it blurred into a distant roar, 3 newborn cries filled the room. 3 tiny miracles. 3 reasons to live. Madison sobbed, overwhelmed, clutching the first baby laid on her chest. But the sweetness lasted barely a minute. A nurse entered, holding a thin stack of documents, the birth certificates. "Mrs. Hale," she said gently, "I need to verify the father's information." Madison nodded weakly. "Asher Lundgren," she whispered. The nurse frowned. "I understand, but his name isn't here." Madison blinked, confused. "What do you mean? He's my husband." The nurse hesitated, then lowered her voice. The form was submitted already, signed electronically. The father's section was left blank intentionally. Madison froze. Her throat closed, her vision swayed. "That's impossible," she breathed. "He wouldn't do that." But the nurse pressed a tablet into her trembling hands, revealing the digital signature, Asher's unmistakable one. A coldness deeper than the winter storm settled into Madison's bones. The father of her children had erased himself before they even opened their eyes, and someone in the hospital had helped him do it. And that was only the beginning. While Madison lay in a room still echoing with newborn cries, Asher Lundgren stood under the bright awning of the hospital's main entrance, brushing a layer of snow off his tailored charcoal coat. His breath misted in the icy air as he checked the time on his Apple Watch 2:13 a.m. He wasn't exhausted, he wasn't worried, he was irritated. He had stayed just long enough for appearances, long enough to let a nurse see him pace the hallway and pretend to be a concerned husband. But once the contractions intensified and the chaos began, he slipped away with a relief that disgust would have described perfectly if he ever allowed himself to feel anything real. His sleek black Mercedes S580 pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out immediately. "Evening, Mr. Lundgren," he said, opening the door. Asher slid inside, brushing off the faint hospital smell clinging to his sleeves. "Park Avenue," he instructed, loosening his tie. "Penthouse level." The driver nodded and pulled into the snow-thickened streets, passing ambulances and darkened storefronts. Manhattan at night was a maze of light and shadow, everything Asher loved and everything he planned to claim. He pulled out his phone. A message blinked on the screen. "Eloise Freeman. Is it done?" A slow smirk crawled across his lips as he typed back. "Yes. She won't bother us anymore." Eloise Freeman, daughter of banking royalty, polished, wealthy, and ruthless, was the woman Asher had chosen as his next stepping stone. Her family controlled legacy properties across the East Coast, and Asher intended to merge himself into that empire. There was no place in that vision for a struggling wife and 3 infants. "Triplets," he scoffed under his breath. What a nightmare. The car glided through the snowy city and pulled up to the towering Freeman residences, a glass and steel monument of old money colliding with new ambition. Asher rode the private elevator up to the penthouse, where soft jazz hummed behind the doors. Eloise opened them, wearing a silk robe and an effortless smile. "You look like a man reborn." "More like a man finally free," he replied, stepping inside. She kissed him lightly, then glanced at the signed electronic document on his phone. "So, the father line was left blank?" "Intentionally," Asher confirmed. "No legal ties, no responsibilities, no scandals." Eloise exhaled with satisfaction. "Good. My parents won't accept you if you're dragging along a complicated past." He bristled at the implication, but masked it quickly. "This is the clean slate you wanted." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "And you'll get everything you ever wanted, Asher. My father's backing, the partnership, the Freeman portfolio, As long as nothing from your old life resurfaces. He stiffened slightly at that. It won't. But she didn't release him. She searched his eyes too long, too sharply. You're sure she won't fight? Some women get bold after birth. Not Madison, he said confidently. She barely speaks up. She won't survive without me. A beat of silence. Then Eloise asked, did anyone else see the paperwork? The question sliced through his confidence for the first time. Just hospital staff, he said. It doesn't matter. Eloise's brows lifted. It matters if someone noticed irregularities. He scowled. Everything is handled. Actually, Faitha. But the truth was unsettling. He hadn't checked. He hadn't even looked back. And somewhere across the city, snow piling high against the hospital walls, someone was noticing. Someone who could ruin everything he had planned. Because back in the maternity ward, a certain doctor had just pulled up the electronic form and realized the signature wasn't legal at all. The maternity ward had finally quieted. The cries of Madison's newborns softened into fragile whimpers as they slept in their warm plastic bassinets. But the stillness in the room didn't ease her. It made the nurse's words echo louder. His name isn't here. It was left blank intentionally. Madison couldn't stop replaying the sentence. Her throat felt tight, too tight, like the air had turned to ice and refused to melt. She stared at the tablet the nurse had shown her, her vision warping around the glowing signature, Asher's unmistakable sweep of letters. Except this time, it was the signature of a stranger. The signature of a man who had chosen to erase himself from their children's lives. A knock interrupted the crushing silence. Dr. Rowan Pierce stepped into the room, his coat still dusted with snow. He wasn't the type of man who entered a space loudly. He carried himself with a calm certainty that made people instinctively shift back and make room for him. Tonight, however, even his steady presence had a storm behind it. Madison, he said gently, the nurse told me there was an issue with the registration forms. Madison swallowed hard. Issue? Her voice cracked. He signed them, but he left the father line empty. She pointed weakly at the tablet. Why would he do that? Why would he sign at all if he... Rowan approached slowly, as if she were made of delicate glass. Let me see what he submitted. The nurse handed him the device. Rowan's jaw tightened the moment his eyes landed on the form. This signature, he murmured, zooming in. It doesn't match the record from his insurance file. Madison blinked. What? How can that? There are inconsistencies, he said carefully. Electronic signatures have patterns, pressure points, angles, timing. This one looks artificial. Her stomach dropped. Meaning what? Rowan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Meaning someone may have created or altered it. And if that's true, the form was submitted without proper authorization. The nurse's eyes widened. Which is illegal. Madison felt the world tilt again. So Asher didn't sign it? Someone else did? Or he forged something? Rowan didn't answer immediately. He turned toward her, compassion softening his features. Madison, I need you to prepare yourself. I think this situation may be bigger than you realize. She pressed her hands to her face, overwhelmed. I just gave birth. I can barely stand. How am I supposed to deal with whatever this is? Rowan sat beside her, keeping his tone calm but firm. You're not dealing with it alone. I'm requesting access to the registration logs and the timestamps, and I'm notifying hospital administration. Something feels wrong about this. Madison stared at him through tears. Why would anyone help him erase himself? Rowan hesitated. Sometimes people with influence get help cutting corners or burying things. A sharp knock slashed through the tension. Another nurse stepped in, breathless. Dr. Pierce, we just received a message from the records department. Someone attempted to access and modify Mrs. Hale's file again. Rowan stiffened. When? 10 minutes ago. Next beat. Madison's heart stopped. Rowan turned slowly toward her, realization dawning in his eyes. Madison, someone here is actively trying to make sure your children have no legal father. She clutched the blanket, trembling. Who would do that? The nurse swallowed. Dr. Pierce, the access request came from a secure administrative login, one belonging to someone high-ranking. Rowan's expression darkened, and the name on that login wasn't Asher's. Endeavor 7. Rowan stood frozen, the fluorescent lights casting a sharp reflection across his tense features. Madison felt her pulse thudding in her ears, each beat louder, heavier, more suffocating than the last. Someone high-ranking had accessed her file, someone with the authority to alter legal documents without triggering routine alerts. That meant this wasn't just Asher's betrayal anymore. This was a coordinated effort. "Who has that level of access?" Madison whispered, her voice trembling. The nurse hesitated, glancing nervously at Rowan before answering. "Senior administrators, department heads, a few legal liaisons who handle high-profile cases." Madison let out a shaky breath. "Why would people like that care about my paperwork?" "I'm nobody." Rowan raised a hand gently. "You're not nobody. You're a patient, and you just delivered 3 premature infants. There's no valid reason your file should be accessed without your consent." He turned to the nurse. "Pull the access log. Print it. And notify the charge nurse discreetly. No emails." She nodded and hurried out, leaving Rowan and Madison alone with the hum of machines and the soft breaths of her newborns. Madison stared at her babies, 3 tiny chests rising and falling in perfect unison. She wrapped her arms around herself, overwhelmed by a sudden sense of danger she couldn't name. "Dr. Pierce, what if Asher asked someone at the hospital to do this? What if he paid someone?" Rowan considered it possible. "But there's another angle." She looked up, startled. "Another?" He lowered his voice. "I don't think this is just about erasing his name. The timing, the secrecy, the forged signature, these signs look like someone trying to avoid a legal trail." Madison frowned. "Legal trail for what?" Rowan leaned closer. "Madison, was there anything unusual about your insurance? Payments? Anything?" Asher insisted on handling himself. A knot formed in her stomach. He always handled everything. He didn't even let me look at the policy details. Last month he made me sign something, said it was just an updated emergency contact form. I didn't think twice. Rowan's expression darkened. He may have switched the responsible party designation. If your file says you're solely responsible for all charges, her breath caught. "But that would mean that you're liable for everything," Rowan finished, his voice grave. "Triplet births, surgery, NICU care. The bills could exceed $2 million. Madison's chest tightened painfully. She clutched the bed sheets to steady herself. He wouldn't do that to me. To us." But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie whispered to herself for comfort. The door opened again. The first nurse returned, clutching a sheet of paper, her face pale. "Dr. Pierce, you need to see this." Rowan scanned the page. His eyes hardened immediately. "Madison," he said carefully, "the login used to modify your file belongs to the hospital's legal administrator." She blinked. "Why would legal get involved in my birth certificates?" "They wouldn't," he replied. "Not unless someone pressured them. Not unless the person requesting it promised something in return." Madison felt the room tilt sideways. "What did they change?" she whispered. Rowan swallowed. "They removed Asher from all financial responsibility. Entirely. Thanks for watching." 2000 Neater. Madison's world cracked open. "He made sure," Rowan continued softly, "that legally, you are the only parent on record. Everything, every debt, every obligation falls on you alone." Her lips trembled. He trapped me." Rowan took her hand, grounding her. "We're not letting him get away with this." But before Madison could breathe, alarms blared from the hallway. A staff member rushed in. "Dr. Pierce, we have a situation. Security was just notified that someone is trying to enter the restricted records server room." Rowan's head snapped toward the door. "Who?" The staff member swallowed hard. "Asher Lundgren is in the building." The hallway buzzed with frantic footsteps as security moved toward the lower floors, but inside Madison's dim recovery room, time seemed to slow. Her chest tightened with every breath, each inhale scraping like cold glass. Asher was here. In the same building, searching for something in the restricted records room, something connected to her, to the babies, to the forged forms Rowan had just uncovered. Madison clung to the bedrail, struggling to steady herself. "Why would he come back now?" she whispered. "He didn't even stay long enough to hear their first cries." Rowan stepped closer, speaking in a low, even voice. "Because he's desperate. And desperate men make dangerous decisions." The truth of that sentence snapped something deep inside her. For the first time since labor began, she wasn't just exhausted, she was scared. Not of Asher himself, but of the lengths he might go to protect whatever secret he'd been hiding long before tonight. Rowan pulled a chair beside her bed. Madison, I need you to tell me everything you know about Asher, not just the marriage, the finances, the strange things he made you sign. She closed her eyes, fighting back a wave of nausea. Memories flickered, some painful, some too raw to touch. It wasn't always like this, she whispered. When we first met, he was charming, smart, ambitious in a way that made you believe anything was possible. He used to bring me coffee to work, wait outside my office on rainy days, say I deserved more than the life I was settling for. Rowan listened quietly, sensing more beneath her words. But after the wedding, she continued, everything changed. He started cutting people out of my life, friends, my coworkers, even my family. She swallowed. He said they were interfering. He said if I loved him, I wouldn't need anyone else. Classic isolation pattern, Rowan noted silently. And the documents? He asked gently. She trembled. Every few months, he'd hand me something to sign. He'd say it was routine insurance updates, administrative forms, emergency contact revisions. He'd get irritated if I hesitated, accuse me of not trusting him. Did you ever read them? Madison looked away, ashamed. No, I wanted to. But he always said we were late, that people were waiting. He'd rush me. Sometimes he'd stand over me. Rowan kept his voice steady. That's not on you. That's coercion. Madison wiped her eyes, exhausted. A few weeks ago, there was one form he pushed harder than the others. He said it was about simplifying the insurance process for the birth. He practically shoved a pen in my hand. Rowan's expression sharpened. That might have been when he transferred all liability. Her lips trembled. And I signed it. A sudden knock startled both of them. The door opened to reveal the charge nurse, her face clouded with concern. Dr. Pierce, she whispered. Security just radioed in. The man trying to enter the server room. He wasn't alone. Rowan stood. Who was with him? The nurse hesitated. A woman. She identified herself as Eloise Freeman. Madison's stomach dropped. Eloise, the woman he was texting. Rowan's jaw clenched. She's not just anyone. The Freemans are powerful. If she's involved, this isn't just a personal betrayal. It's a coordinated attempt to bury something. The nurse lowered her voice further. Security stopped them before they accessed anything, but they both insisted they had authorization. They demanded to see Madison Hale's file. Madison pressed a hand to her chest as panic surged. Why my file? Her voice cracked. Why would she care? Rowan exhaled slowly, eyes dark with realization. Because this isn't about removing Asher's name anymore. It's about removing something else. Madison stared at him, terrified. Removing what? Rowan hesitated, then spoke the words that chilled the room. Eloise wasn't trying to erase the father. She was trying to erase you. The name Eloise Freeman lingered in the air like a poison no one knew how to treat. Rowan's voice had gone tight, and even the charge nurse seemed rattled. Madison sat frozen, her fingers curling weakly into the hospital blanket, unable to process the idea that the woman Asher had replaced her with someone she had never even met, was actively trying to erase her existence from hospital records. Why would she do that? Madison whispered, her voice barely audible. I mean, I understand Asher wanting to leave me. I understand betrayal. But erasing me? Why would she go that far? Rowan crossed his arms, leaning against the wall with a heavy exhale. Madison, Eloise Freeman isn't just a mistress. She belongs to one of the wealthiest financial dynasties in the Northeast. They control political donations, commercial real estate, entire investment groups. If she wants to marry Asher, the Freemans will do everything to protect her public image. Madison stared at him, blank and trembling. Meaning? Meaning, Rowan said gently but firmly. There can't be a wife. Or ex-wife. Or scandal involving triplets born out of betrayal. You being listed anywhere on insurance, on legal documents, on custody charts complicates her future. Madison felt her heartbeat crack. So, she wants me gone. Not physically, Rowan clarified, though the certainty in his voice wavered. But legally? Absolutely. Madison stared at her 3 newborns, one twitching in sleep, another stirring softly, the smallest breathing with a faint whistle. Pure innocence, untouched by the greed swirling around them. I don't understand, she whispered. How can someone hate me without even knowing me? That's the thing, Rowan replied. She doesn't see you as a person. She sees you as a problem. Madison's breath hitched. A problem to be deleted. Rowan didn't deny it. A nurse entered briefly to check the baby's temperatures, whispering a soft apology as she worked. The room felt colder with every passing second. Madison wrapped her arms around herself, her postpartum exhaustion making it impossible to process the reality unraveling around her. My marriage wasn't perfect, she said shakily, but he wasn't like this in the beginning. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't calculated. When did everything change? Rowan dragged a chair closer and sat, giving her his full attention. Tell me what happened after the proposal. And 49. Madison's eyes grew distant, drifting back to the early days when Asher had been attentive, affectionate, magnetic, when she believed he saw her, valued her. But slowly, the charm had dulled into control. The attention became surveillance. The affection became conditional. He didn't like my job, she whispered. Didn't like my friends. Didn't like when I questioned him. He always said I was too emotional, too dramatic. That's manipulation, Rowan said quietly. He told me that without him, I'd fall apart. Her voice cracked, and I believed him. The monitor beeped softly behind them, syncing with her rising panic. And now he's doing everything he can to make that true, she said with a strangled laugh that collapsed into a sob. Rowan leaned forward, gently taking her hand, a grounding gesture. Madison, listen to me. Whatever he planned, it's unraveling, because he thought no one would pay attention. But I am, and I won't let him bury you. End quote. Before she could respond, the charge nurse rushed back, her cheeks flushed from running. Dr. Pierce, you need to see this. Rowan stood instantly. What happened? She held out a tablet, her hand trembling. Security reviewed the footage from the restricted records wing. Madison braced herself. The nurse swallowed hard. Eloise wasn't helping Asher. She was leading him. And she had a key card that shouldn't exist. The image on the tablet froze Rowan mid-motion. Eloise Freeman, wrapped in a long ivory coat, her blonde hair sleek and deliberate, stood in front of a restricted access door. She glanced over her shoulder, lips tight, posture rigid, not the careless confidence of someone breaking rules, but the controlled precision of someone accustomed to getting away with it. She lifted a slim, matte black keycard. A keycard no hospital visitor should ever possess. Behind her, Asher lingered like a shadow, his hands stuffed in his coat pockets, his expression cold and impatient. Eloise tapped the card against the scanner. The light blinked green. Rowan's jaw flexed. That door should require dual authorization, staff badge, and biometric scan. The charge nurse nodded, voice barely above a whisper. It does. But the card she used belonged to one of our legal administrators. It's been missing for 3 days. End quote. Madison felt something inside her sink deeper than panic, a hollow, icy dread. She stole it? Why would she? Rowan cut in quietly. Because she didn't want a trail. If the system shows an administrator's login, that person takes the blame, not her. Madison pressed a hand to her forehead. So she's not just helping Asher, she's orchestrating this. The nurse looked down. There's more. When security approached them, Eloise claimed she had pre-approval from a federal liaison. Number 7. Number 7. Rowan's head snapped toward her. Federal? That's a lie. What liaison? They wouldn't say. They insisted the clerk on the overnight shift verify it. The poor girl was terrified she almost let them in. Madison could barely keep up. Why would Eloise even need to get into that room? What else is in there besides legal files? Rowan hesitated. The hospital's digital archive. Every birth certificate, adoption file, paternity test, and insurance authorizer is stored there. Thanks for watching. Madison felt her breath leave her body. She had underestimated Eloise. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't rivalry. This was warfare. A silent, calculated erasure. Rowan took a breath, steadying himself. Madison, if Eloise was trying to delete or alter your personal records not just tonight but earlier, then she may have been working on this long before the birth. Madison gripped the blankets, her voice cracking. But why? Why go so far? Rowan met her eyes. Because the Freemans don't just protect their image, they control their narrative. And if Eloise wants Asher, she wants him clean. No baggage, no legal ties, no children with another woman. The charge nurse stepped forward, lowering her voice. We think they were trying to see if Madison's parental assignment could be reclassified. Madison blinked. Reclassified? What does that mean? Rowan's expression hardened. In extremely rare legal scenarios, if a mother is deemed unfit physically, medically, or psychologically, custody can be transferred without her consent. Madison stared at him, horror rippling through her chest. Are you saying they want to take my babies? Rowan didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. He finally spoke, voice low and grave. Someone with Eloise's influence could argue postpartum instability. Combine that with the financial burden Asher shifted onto you. They could make a case that you're incapable of providing adequate care. A sob tore from Madison's throat. My God, she wants to replace me. Rowan moved closer, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I won't let that happen, but we need to act before they find another way in. Before Madison could respond, the overhead pager crackled alive. Code Violet, NICU Wing. Rowan's face drained of color. The charge nurse whispered, horrified. That's where your babies are. Madison felt her soul rip open. What happened? She choked. A security officer burst through the door, breathless. Dr. Pierce, someone just tried to access the Hale infants. Rowan spun toward him. Who was it? The officer swallowed, pale. They said they were acting under authorization. From Asher Lundgren. For a split second, Madison forgot how to breathe. Her babies, her 3 fragile, premature miracles, were in the NICU, alone, vulnerable, barely a few hours old. And someone had just tried to access them under Asher's authorization. Madison pushed herself upright, pain lancing through her abdomen. Rowan, I need to go. You can't stand yet, Rowan said firmly, gripping her shoulders before she toppled. You just had major surgery. You could tear your stitches. I don't care, she cried. If Asher is trying to take them, he's not getting anywhere near them, Rowan cut in, voice low but lethal. Not while I'm here. The security officer shifted uneasily. Dr. Pierce, we stopped the attempt. A man showed staff a falsified authorization form. He claimed he needed to verify the infants' identities for insurance clearance. Madison's blood ran cold. Insurance clearance? For newborns? That doesn't even make sense. Exactly, Rowan snapped. They're not even trying to hide the sloppiness anymore. The officer nodded. The staff refused to comply, but the man insisted Mr. Lundgren had authority over all medical decisions and that you, he looked at Madison, were not legally competent to make choices at this time. Madison felt physically sick. He said, I'm not competent? Rowan's eyes darkened. They're laying groundwork. If Eloise and Asher convince hospital administration you're unstable after birth, they could push for emergency custody transfer for the children's welfare. That's legal? Madison whispered. Only if the mother is proven incapable, Rowan replied. But they're trying to manufacture that narrative. The room fell silent. Machines hummed. Her baby's soft, distant cries echoed in her memory. Madison clenched the sheets. I won't let them take my children. And they won't, Rowan said. Not while I'm still breathing. He turned to the security officer. Double the guards at NICU. Nobody enters that unit unless they're assigned to those infants. And I want the identity of the man who tried to get in. The officer nodded. We're reviewing footage now. When he stepped out, Rowan sank into the chair beside Madison, rubbing a hand across his forehead, a rare display of strain from a man usually composed. Madison, he began gently, I didn't tell you earlier because I didn't want to overwhelm you, but Asher and Eloise have connections, deep ones. People who owe favors to the Freeman family, they're not acting alone. Madison swallowed hard. You mean the hospital administrator who changed my file may have been pressured or paid, Rowan finished. And if Eloise has access to a legal administrator's keycard, then she has someone on the inside. Tears welled in Madison's eyes. I can't compete with her. With any of them. You're not competing, Rowan said softly. You're defending your children, and you're not doing it alone. His tone softened further. I've already reached out to someone, an attorney I trust. She specializes in medical law and emergency custody protections. Madison blinked, stunned. You did that for me? For you, Rowan said simply, and for 3 babies who deserve to be safe. If you Riznes. Before she could speak, a nurse rushed in this time from the NICU, face flushed with alarm. Dr. Pierce, there's an urgent problem. Rowan shot to his feet. What now? It's the smallest baby, baby C, she said breathlessly. His oxygen levels dropped. We stabilized him, but then we noticed something else. Madison's heart lurched violently. Something else? What do you mean? The nurse hesitated, wringing her hands. We found an unfamiliar fingerprint on his incubator. Someone touched it without authorization. Rowan stiffened. Who? The nurse looked at the floor, frightened. When we lifted the print, it matched Eloise Freeman. The moment the words, "The fingerprint belongs to Eloise Freeman," reached Madison's ears, something inside her snapped. Not fear, something sharper, something colder. For hours she'd been drowning, treading water in a storm of betrayal, confusion, legal manipulation, and exhaustion. But this was different. This was a line crossed so far, it felt like a violation of her very soul. She touched my child? Madison whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and fury. Rowan's expression hardened in a way she hadn't seen before, his calm replaced by a physician's controlled rage. The NICU is a sterile, restricted environment. Unauthorized physical contact with an incubator is a serious breach. It's an act of intimidation, the nurse said softly. Or a warning? When you canna. Madison's stomach twisted. A warning for what? Rowan didn't hesitate. For you to give up. The idea was grotesque, monstrous, and yet, given everything Eloise had done in less than 24 hours, it made terrible sense. Before Rowan could say another word, the door swung open. A hospital administrator, stern, stiff, and visibly nervous, stepped inside, accompanied by 2 security officers. Madison instinctively pulled her knees closer to her chest, protective instinct bristling. Mrs. Hale, the administrator said, avoiding her eyes, we need to discuss an urgent matter regarding parental permissions. Rowan moved instantly, positioning himself between them. She is not to be questioned without legal representation present. This is a safety protocol issue, the administrator replied thinly. We've received a request from Mr. Asher Lundgren to take temporary emergency custody of the infants due to concerns regarding the mother's mental stability post-operation. Ever, teeming with 3. Madison gasped, the room spinning. What? Rowan's voice turned cold as steel. You will not entertain that request. Mrs. Hale is medically stable and showing no signs of incapacity. The administrator lifted a tablet. We received documentation submitted earlier this evening listing Mr. Lundgren as the sole responsible party for the infants. Madison's throat burned. That's forged. He did that without my consent. And, the administrator continued, we have an affidavit from Miss Eloise Freeman stating Mrs. Hale became emotionally volatile and verbally aggressive toward medical staff. I've barely spoken to anyone, Madison cried. She wasn't even here. That affidavit is fraudulent, Rowan said sharply, and illegal. The administrator exhaled, troubled. We are reviewing the documents, but until then, Mr. Lundgren is en route to the hospital with additional paperwork. No, Madison whispered. No, he can't take them. He can't. Is never. Rowan stepped forward, shoulders squared. If he sets foot in this room, he'll be removed immediately. And if you authorize any transfer of custody, I will personally escalate this to the state medical board and the district attorney. The administrator swallowed, startled by Rowan's intensity. Dr. Pierce, please understand. We're under pressure. The Freemans have influence, and I don't care if they own half of Manhattan. Rowan snapped. You're not stealing 3 premature infants from their mother on the basis of fabricated claims. Silence thickened. Then the sound, footsteps. Heavy, determined, echoing down the hall. Every person in the room turned toward the door as a shadow crossed the frosted glass. Madison's blood turned to ice. Rowan inhaled sharply. The administrator stiffened, because standing just outside the doorway, flanked by 2 men in expensive coats, was Asher Lundgren. And he wasn't alone. A woman's silhouette appeared beside him. Eloise Freeman had come to take Madison's children herself. The door slid open with a low mechanical hiss, and Asher Lundgren stepped inside like he owned the room. Snow clung to his coat in sharp crystalline flakes, but his expression was pure summer, arrogance, warm, smug, suffocating. Eloise Freeman stood beside him, perfectly composed. Her lipstick immaculate, her smile razor-thin. Madison, Asher said, his tone dripping with faux concern. I heard there were complications. I came to help. Rowan moved so quickly that Madison barely registered the motion. He positioned himself squarely between her and the intruders, posture rigid, eyes blazing. You're not welcome here. Asher's smirk deepened. I don't need your permission, doctor. These are my children. They're premature infants in critical condition, Rowan snapped. And you haven't shown a shred of concern for them until now. With everyone. Eloise stepped forward, her voice smooth as silk dipped in venom. We're here to correct the chaos caused by Madison's emotional instability. She's in no state to make decisions about 3 fragile newborns. Madison's breath hitched. You don't even know me. I don't need to know you, Eloise replied sweetly. Your behavior speaks for itself. What behavior? Madison cried. I've been unconscious half the day. If you vor. Asher crossed his arms, leaning casually against the foot of her hospital bed. See? Irrational. Overreacting. This is exactly what the affidavit mentioned. The affidavit you falsified, Rowan barked, and the authorization you forged, and the fingerprint you left on an incubator, Miss Freeman. Eloise's mask cracked for the first time. That's impossible. Rowan leaned forward, voice quiet but lethal. We have the match. A flicker of panic flashed in her eyes, quick but unmistakable. She recovered almost instantly, lifting her chin with an icy poise. You have no idea who you're accusing. Oh, I do, Rowan said. And I also know you illegally used an administrator's keycard. Asher's face hardened. Rowan, whatever you think you know. I know enough, Rowan interrupted. I know you tried to erase Madison's legal standing. I know you tried to sabotage her insurance. I know you attempted unauthorized access to her children. And Arishan. Asher pushed off the bed, stepping dangerously close. You should be careful. Careers end over accusations like that. Mine won't, Rowan said calmly. But yours? Already circling the drain. Asher's jaw twitched. Eloise placed a hand on his arm. Asher, let's not waste time. The documents we brought supersede whatever errors the hospital made earlier. Present them. Asher pulled out a folder with a flourish. Legal seals, notary stamps, printed signatures. He held it out triumphantly. Emergency custody transfer, he said, signed by Madison Hale. Madison's heart stopped. I never signed that. Rowan snatched the folder, scanning furiously. His eyes widened with disgust. This is sloppy. The signature is a copy-paste from her driver's license, and the notary stamp expired 5 years ago. Eloise's smile wavered. Asher growled. It doesn't matter. With my influence won't help you here, Rowan cut in. I've already contacted an attorney, and hospital legal is aware of your attempt to tamper with records. Before any of them could speak, a shrill alarm erupted overhead. The entire hallway flooded with red light. A nurse sprinted past, shouting, NICU lockdown, unauthorized, breach detected. Madison's blood ran cold. Rowan whipped toward the intercom panel. A voice crackled through it. Security alert, someone is inside the Hale infant's room. Madison screamed. Rowan turned, eyes wide with horror. Asher and Eloise stared at each other, stunned. Somebody else had gone after the babies. And it wasn't Asher or Eloise. The hallway exploded into motion. Nurses sprinted, security radios crackled, doors slammed shut as the NICU wing locked itself behind metal-reinforced barriers. Red lights strobed along the ceiling, casting everything in a frantic glow. Madison clawed at her blankets. Rowan, my babies, they're in there. And, you're not going anywhere, Rowan said, his voice stern but trembling with urgency. He turned to a nearby nurse. Get a wheelchair. Now. The nurse rushed off. Asher raised his hands in feigned innocence. This isn't us. We came straight here. For once, Rowan growled, I believe you. Eloise scoffed. If someone breached the NICU, then your staff is incompetent. This isn't the time, Rowan snapped, already moving toward the security station. Come on, Madison, and a.com. Her entire body shook as Rowan helped her into the wheelchair, his touch steady but urgent. She felt half dizzy from fear, half from the lingering effects of surgery. But nothing would stop her from getting closer to her children. As Rowan pushed her down the hall, sirens continued wailing overhead. Staff parted around them, whispering, faces pale. NICU breaches were almost unheard of. The protocols were airtight. Whoever got inside had skill. Or access. Or both. When they reached the security hub, a guard pointed to a monitor. The feed is glitching. Someone tampered with the cameras. Rowan leaned closer. Can you restore it? We're trying, the guard said. But whoever did this knew the system. Asher and Eloise arrived behind them, Eloise crossing her arms. This chaos is unacceptable. If those infants are harmed... Madison turned her head sharply, rage slicing through her exhaustion. Don't you dare pretend you care about my children. Thanks for watching. Eloise opened her mouth to retort, but Rowan cut in. Quiet. All of you. A technician yelled from across the room. I've got a visual. Everyone crowded around the main monitor. A jittery, flickering feed appeared black, static, then color. The angle showed the NICU corridor. A masked figure dressed in gray medical scrubs moved quickly from one incubator to another. Madison's heart stopped. That's them, the guard said. But their badge isn't in the system. They spoofed it. End quote. Rowan's voice dropped an octave. Zoom in. The screen sharpened just enough to catch the intruder's movements. They weren't touching the babies. They were placing something beneath each incubator. Small, dark devices, no bigger than a thumb. What is that? Madison cried. What are they doing? Some kind of tracker? Rowan guessed, though his voice lacked conviction. No, wait, that's not medical equipment. Eloise gasped softly. Is that? The intruder suddenly turned toward the camera, as if sensing the feed was back online. Their eyes, cold, sharp, met the lens. For a split second, the room felt like it froze. Then the figure bolted off screen. Alarms escalated to a piercing pitch. Security raced toward the NICU barriers. Rowan grabbed the intercom. Seal every exit. No one leaves this floor without my clearance. He turned to Madison. I'm going to get your babies. No, she cried, grabbing his sleeve. Rowan, what if they're dangerous? They are dangerous, Rowan said softly. That's why I have to go. He looked her straight in the eyes, steady, grounding, fierce. You trust me? Yes, Madison whispered. He nodded once, then sprinted toward the NICU corridor as security worked on breaching the lockdown. Asher muttered under his breath. This is spiraling out of control. Madison glared at him. This spiraled the moment you abandoned us. Importance. Before he could respond, the technician at the monitor shouted, Wait, there's audio. A faint sound crackled through the speakers, captured from a hallway mic. A voice distorted, disguised, whispered. The mother can't protect them. She won't be in the picture much longer. Madison's blood turned cold. And then the technician froze, pointing at the screen. Dr. Pierce just cornered the intruder. The video shifted, showing Rowan facing the masked figure. The figure lunged. And Rowan. Rowan suddenly collapsed to the floor. The scream that tore from Madison's throat didn't sound human. It was raw, primal, instinctive, the sound of a mother watching her last line of protection fall. Rowan. Her voice echoed off the sterile walls as the monitor replayed the moment again. Rowan lunged toward the intruder. The intruder twisted sharply, and then Rowan's body buckled like someone had cut his strings. He hit the floor hard, unmoving. Madison felt her world tilt. She gripped the sides of the wheelchair so tightly her knuckles went white, but it did nothing to stop the drowning sensation clawing up her throat. What happened to him? She choked. Did they stab him? Did they? The guard shook his head. There was no weapon visible. It happened too fast. Asher muttered darkly. Maybe your heroic doctor isn't as trained for danger as he pretends. Madison whipped her head toward him, fury burning through her tears. Shut up, Asher. End quote. But Eloise placed a manicured hand on his arm. Let it go. We need to focus on what matters, she said coolly. The infants. Asher's infants. My infants, Madison corrected, voice trembling but sharp enough to cut glass. Not yours, not his mistress's. Security burst into motion. A triage team was already running toward the NICU wing with medical kits, crash bags, and a defibrillator, not knowing yet what condition Rowan was in. The technician zoomed the feed out, trying to track the intruder's location. They're moving fast west corridor now. They disabled 2 cameras. Were blind until they hit the next motion sensor. Madison's heart thundered. Are the babies safe? Did they touch them? Did they? A NICU nurse rushed in, breathless. Vitals are holding. No signs of tampering inside the incubators. The devices placed underneath them our tech team is analyzing. They aren't bombs. possibly trackers, sensors, or something meant to gather data. Data for what? Madison asked. No one answered. Because no one knew. Or worse, no one wanted to say it out loud. Certain powerful families collected data differently. As she trembled, Madison felt Asher's gaze on her like a shadow. He straightened his coat, exhaled sharply, and said, "We wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't created chaos. If you had cooperated." "If I had what?" Madison snapped. "Let you erase me? Let your mistress put her hands on my newborns?" Eloise's expression twisted an ugly thing, briefly breaking through her polished veneer. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. A woman in your condition shouldn't be responsible for triplets." "My condition?" Madison repeated softly. "You touched my baby's incubator. Isn't that a condition?" Before Eloise could retort, security radios crackled. "Lockdown breach, north stairwell. Repeat, intruder attempting escape." "Ada," Madison gasped. "They're getting away." "Not if I reach them," one officer said, sprinting off. The administrator turned pale. "We need to move Mrs. Hale and the infants to a secure room immediately." But Madison couldn't think about her own safety, only Rowan's. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking, "someone tell me if he's alive." A young triage nurse appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "We found him." Madison's heart seized. "Is he?" "He's unconscious," the nurse said, voice trembling. "But he's breathing. We're stabilizing him now. It looks like the intruder used a contact stun device, illegal, high voltage. He took the hit, meant for someone else." "Someone else." "Her." Madison collapsed into silent tears. Before anyone could speak again, another guard burst into the room, panting. "We have a new problem," he said. Everyone tensed. The intruder dropped something, a folder, full of legal documents. End quote. "What kind of documents?" Rowan's triage nurse asked. The guard swallowed. "Documents filing to remove Madison Hale from all parental rights. Permanently." For a long moment, nobody in the room moved. The words hung in the air, heavy, poisonous, irreversible. Documents filing to remove Madison Hale from all parental rights. Permanently. Madison felt her breath leave her body. Not in a gasp, not in a cry, just gone. Like someone had reached inside her chest and quietly stolen the oxygen away. They want to erase me legally," she whispered, voice brittle. The guard nodded stiffly. "These documents are sophisticated, stamped, formatted, some sections pre-approved. Someone with serious legal power prepared them." Eloise smoothed the front of her coat, an unbothered look settling over her beauty. "Madison, no one is erasing you. You're simply not suitable. Triplets need stability, wealth, consistent upbringing. You can't provide that." Madison stared at her, hollow. "You don't even know me." "I don't have to," Eloise replied coolly. "The world you've lived in has limits. The world Asher and I live in does not." Asher finally spoke up. "Let's not dramatize this. It's a transitional situation." "A transitional situation?" Madison snapped. "You're trying to steal my children." Rowan's absence weighed heavily on the room. He would have stood between them, would have sliced through Eloise's manipulation with calm precision. But now he lay unconscious somewhere behind a wall of locked doors. Madison felt unbearably alone, until the door opened. A woman stepped inside mid-40 seconds, sharp black suit, hair in a sleek bun, glasses glinting under fluorescent lights. Confidence radiated off her like quiet thunder. "Mrs. Hale?" she asked. Madison blinked. "Yes? I'm attorney Celeste Ward, doctor. Pierce contacted me hours ago." Relief hit Madison so hard she nearly collapsed. Celeste's gaze swept the room, landing on Asher and Eloise with clinical disdain. "I reviewed the documents your intruder dropped." Eloise's smile flickered. "Intruder? We have no connection to..." Celeste cut her off with one raised finger. "Don't lie. The documents were drawn up by a Freeman-affiliated firm. I recognized the formatting immediately." Asher stiffened. Celeste continued. "The filing attempts to prove Mrs. Hale is unfit due to psychological instability and financial incapacity." Except she lifted the folder. "Your fabrication is sloppy. The medical claims don't match her chart, the timestamps don't align with her admission, and much of the financial information was illegally obtained." A single beat of silence passed. Then Celeste delivered the hit. "This isn't just parental interference. This is attempted identity nullification on a mother who just underwent major surgery. Judges hate this kind of case. Eloise's jaw tightened. We have powerful backing. You have no idea. Oh, I know exactly who backs you, Celeste replied calmly, and so does the state attorney general, because I've already forwarded your forged documents to his office. Asher paled. Celeste turned to Madison. I'm filing an emergency protection petition on your behalf. Any attempt to remove you or the infants from this hospital will be considered kidnapping under state law. Madison's hands trembled. Thank you. I thank you. Celeste softened. Your doctor trusted you, and he trusted me. Mentioning Rowan sent another bolt of fear through Madison. Did anyone update? The guard stepped forward. We just received word. Dr. Pierce is stable but still unconscious. Madison's chest tightened painfully. Celeste placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll protect your children, Madison. But there's something else you need to see. She opened the folder and removed a single page stamped, notarized, unmistakably damning. Madison's eyes widened. What is that? Celeste inhaled deeply. Proof of who funded the attempt to remove your parental rights. Madison braced herself. Celeste flipped the page toward her. A name stared back. Not Asher. Not Eloise. A name Madison hadn't expected in her darkest nightmares. Her father's. For a moment, Madison genuinely wondered if she was hallucinating. Sleep deprivation, anesthesia, trauma, fear, any of those could make her imagine seeing that name. But it didn't disappear. It stayed. Bold letters. Official font. Her father's signature, written cleanly beside the Freeman firm's emblem. Why? Why is his name on this? Madison whispered, her voice thin as air. My father hates Asher. He didn't even come to the wedding. Other's servant. And tented of the Desvian. Celeste Ward spoke with a gentleness that didn't soften the blow. He didn't sign in support of Asher. He signed in support of removing you. Madison felt her stomach drop so violently she thought she might faint. No, he wouldn't do that. My father is strict, but he's not. A man who would help strangers take your children? Eloise finished with quiet cruelty. Madison's breath shattered. Shut up. Celeste stepped between them before the room could ignite into chaos. I dug deeper, she continued. The documents tying your father to the Freemans go back years. Investment partnerships, loans, bailouts, and about 18 months ago, a significant personal debt. Madison blinked, still unable to steady her voice. Debt? My father? He would never borrow money from. Celeste handed her another sheet, her expression grave. He did. From the Freeman Group directly. The interest terms were predatory. Asher let out a low whistle. Guess bankruptcies run in the family. Not now, Celeste snapped, without even looking at him. Madison's fingers trembled as she read the numbers. Her father owed a staggering sum, a sum no working-class man could repay in 2 lifetimes. But what does that have to do with me? Madison whispered. Celeste exhaled slowly. Because part of the repayment agreement, hidden in an addendum, stipulated your father would facilitate the restructuring of any familial or legal obstacles involving the Freeman estate. Madison's confusion deepened. What does that even mean? It means, Celeste said, he offered you. Silence fell like a blow. Madison couldn't breathe, couldn't think, her chest constricted as if invisible fingers were closing around her lungs. He sold me, she whispered. He sold his own daughter. End quote. Celeste knelt beside her wheelchair. Madison, I'm so sorry. We think the Freemans found out you were pregnant. They saw a threat, and your father was pressured to help neutralize that threat. Neutralize? Madison echoed, horrified. Eloise spoke lightly, too lightly. It's not as dramatic as it sounds. Your father simply helped expedite the process of severing your parental rights, so that you could replace me? Madison snapped, tears burning hot tracks down her cheeks. Eloise did not deny it. Madison felt something in her break, something tender, maybe naive, maybe hopeful, but whatever it was, it cracked down the middle. Her father, the man who raised her, the man who taught her to walk, the man who told her to be strong, had traded her away like a liability. Why? She cried. Why would he do that to me? Asher shrugged. Maybe he finally realized you weren't cut out to be. Finish that sentence, Madison hissed, and see what happens. Bake. Celeste placed a steadying hand on Madison's arm. You're stronger than you think. And now that we know who's behind this, we can fight smarter. Madison swallowed hard. What do? We expose them, Celeste said. All of them. But first, before she could finish, a security officer burst into the room, out of breath. We just got word from the NICU, he said urgently. They finished analyzing the devices placed under the baby's incubators. Rowan's still unconscious. The intruder on the loose. Her father revealed as a traitor. Madison braced herself. The officer hesitated, then spoke. Those devices weren't trackers. They were collecting DNA. Madison felt her pulse slam violently in her ears. Tina. They were collecting DNA from her newborn triplets. She clutched the armrest of the wheelchair so hard, the plastic dug into her palm. Why would they want my baby's DNA? What possible reason? Celeste Ward stepped forward, her expression darkening. DNA collection without consent is highly illegal, and it's rarely done for innocent reasons. Eloise smirked, folding her arms. You're overreacting. Hospitals collect DNA all the time. It's routine. No, Rowan's NICU nurse snapped. It isn't. Not like this. Not with hidden devices. Asher rolled his eyes. Maybe someone in the NICU was running some side project. You can't pin everything on us. Celeste didn't even bother looking at him. Mr. Lundgren, the devices used were biometric samplers, military grade. No civilian hospital uses them. Madison's fear spiked. So who does? Celeste hesitated. Organizations with private interests in genetics, wealth-based groups, families who want to ensure lineage, inheritance rights, or purity of bloodlines. Eloise stiffened at that, her smile slipping for just a fraction of a second. Celeste saw it. So did Madison. Oh my God, Madison whispered. This isn't about custody. This isn't about me. This is about property. Celeste finished. Specifically, heirs. The pieces snapped together too fast, too brutally. The Freemans didn't just want Asher. They didn't just want to erase Madison. They wanted the triplets as Freeman heirs. Asher finally stepped forward, voice strained. Madison, listen, this is bigger than you understand. Having children connected to the Freeman family. They're not connected, Madison shouted. They're my children. To what? Eloise let out a cold laugh. Biologically, perhaps, but lineage is not biology alone. It's power, and your children would inherit more from me than they ever could from you. Madison felt physically sick. You're insane. Am I? Eloise asked calmly. Or do I simply understand what they deserve? Rowan's NICU nurse intervened. The DNA devices also contain something else. Everyone turned to her. Encrypted data, she said, not just samples. The intruder was uploading information in real time to an external network. Celeste's expression sharpened instantly. A live stream? From inside the hospital? The nurse nodded. We blocked the signal after we discovered it, but whoever was receiving it already has partial samples. Madison pressed her hand over her mouth, trembling violently. So they have my children's DNA. Celeste put a comforting hand on her shoulder. Only partial strands. Not enough to file a full inheritance claim, but enough to start one. Enough to justify taking the children for further evaluation. Madison's tears spilled over. They were going to use my babies as assets. Eloise's voice dropped into a chilling, polished whisper. Every powerful family needs heirs. Asher's bloodline is strong, and your children, well, they're convenient and vulnerable. Celeste turned slowly toward Eloise. You do realize everything you're saying is criminal, right? Eloise tilted her head, unfazed. Only if you can prove it. Before Celeste could respond, the guard's radio crackled aggressively. Security to all floors suspect located. North stairwell. They're heading toward the roof. Madison's heart slammed into her ribcage. The roof? She whispered. Why are they going to? But another voice cut through the radio, urgent. Panicked. Be advised suspect, carrying a black duffel bag. Weight unknown. Handle with extreme caution. Celeste's face went ashen. The devices. There may be more. The NICU nurse gasped. What if they plan to destroy evidence? Or plant more? Madison's breath hitched. What if they're planning to take someone else's DNA? Or someone else, Celeste said grimly. Before anyone could speak, a second, clearer message blasted through the speaker. Suspect is not acting alone. Second masked figure spotted on the roof. It's Matter. Madison gripped her chest as realization struck like lightning. Oh God, they're not escaping. They're waiting for someone. The room seemed to shrink as the radio repeated the chilling message. Second, masked figure on the roof. Madison felt her pulse spike. Every instinct screamed that this was no simple escape attempt. Something coordinated, planned was unfolding above them. Celeste straightened, her tone sharp with authority. We need lockdown on all rooftop exits. No aircraft, no private helipads, no delivery drones near this building. The guard blinked. Ma'am, we haven't confirmed any aircraft. Then confirm it, Celeste snapped. Now. Eloise stepped forward, her face tightening. This is ridiculous. You're turning this into some spy thriller to scare Madison. No one is coming for anyone. But her voice wavered just slightly. Madison caught it. Fear. Eloise Freeman was actually afraid. Asher, Madison whispered, staring at him. What aren't you telling us? Asher didn't answer immediately. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding her eyes. Look, the Freeman family handles things differently. You don't understand the politics at play. Politics? Madison shot back. My babies were almost kidnapped and DNA harvested, and you call that politics? Asher's jaw clenched. I didn't agree to that part. Eloise turned toward him sharply. Asher. He raised his hands. I agreed to severing legal ties, not whatever this is. You don't make the decisions, Eloise whispered harshly. You're the one who needs them, remember? Madison swallowed hard. Need them for what? The room went still. Eloise glared at Asher. Asher stared at the floor. Celeste's expression sharpened. Mr. Lundgren, if you know anything about who is on that roof, you need to speak now. A doctor is unconscious. Infants were targeted. This isn't just a custody case, it's a criminal operation. Asher finally exhaled shakily. There's someone else involved. A chill crawled up Madison's spine. Who? Celeste demanded. Asher hesitated. The Freemans aren't acting alone. They partnered with another group, a private biotech firm. They wanted first rights to new-gen heirs, whatever that means. Eloise presented it as a business deal. I didn't think. You never think, Madison whispered. You just destroy. If one foresighted do. Before Asher could respond, the radio crackled again. Security to command visual confirmation of a helicopter approaching the roof. No flight plan filed. Unknown operator. Eloise's face drained of color. What? No, that wasn't approved. Celeste rounded on her. So you did know someone else was involved. I knew they wanted to speed things up, Eloise snapped. Not this, not abduction. Madison's chest constricted. They're here to take my babies. And 70s. Celeste turned instantly to the guard. Send officers to every stairwell and elevator leading to the roof, and send 2 NICU guards to the babies now. The guard nodded and sprinted out. Madison trembled uncontrollably. If Rowan were awake, he'd be doing exactly what we're doing, Celeste said gently. He'd be fighting. Alarms blared again, louder, shriller, urgent. A voice boomed through the PA system. Unauthorized landing detected. Roof access breach imminent. End quote. Eloise grabbed Asher's arm. We have to go. Now. No one is leaving, Celeste commanded. You can't stop us, Eloise hissed. Celeste smirked coldly. Watch me. But before either woman could move, a second guard ran into the room, nearly tripping over his own feet. Miss Ward, Mrs. Hale, there's something you need to hear. He held out a radio handset, trembling. A message was transmitted from the roof, directed specifically to Madison Hale. Madison blinked. To me? The guard nodded. How? She whispered. He swallowed hard. They used your full legal name and the name of your mother. Madison's heart slammed sideways. My mother? She's dead. The guard handed her the radio. Just listen. A distorted voice crackled through the speaker. Cold, calculated, familiar. Madison Hale. Your children belong with their rightful bloodline, the one you were never allowed to claim. Celeste's eyes widened. What does that mean? The voice continued. We're done waiting. Bring the infants to the roof, or we come down for them. Madison's hand shook so violently she almost dropped the radio, because she suddenly recognized the voice. It wasn't Eloise. It wasn't Asher. It wasn't the Freemans. It was her father. Madison's world tilted violently as her father's voice echoed through the radio, cold, clipped, and disturbingly sure of himself. It didn't sound like the man who taught her to ride a bike, who worked double shifts to buy her college books, who used to pack her lunches with handwritten notes. This voice was a stranger's. Celeste reacted instantly. Cut the connection. Now. But the guard shook his head. We can't. They're overriding hospital channels. The radio hissed again. Madison, you were never meant to raise those children. Bring them to the roof. Madison pressed a trembling hand over her mouth. Why? Why is he doing this? Why would my father? Eloise scoffed. Isn't it obvious? You're not who you think you are. Madison whipped toward her. What does that mean? Celeste narrowed her eyes at Eloise. Start talking, now. Eloise hesitated, something she rarely did before answering. The Freemans didn't want your children because of Asher. They wanted them because of you, because of your bloodline. Madison blinked, confused. My bloodline? My family is normal, ordinary. My father is a blue-collar worker, not. Eloise shook her head slowly. Oh, Madison, no, he isn't. Celeste stepped in, voice low. Explain. Eloise inhaled sharply, as if admitting this cost her something. Your mother came from a line the Freemans have been trying to merge with for decades, an old family with genetic markers tied to inheritance laws in several states. Quiet wealth, old money, some of it unregistered. Madison's throat tightened. That doesn't make sense. My mother grew up in a tiny town. A tiny town, Eloise interrupted, built on land her family owned. Her name was changed when she married your father. She walked away from everything: legacy, property, inheritance. When she died, the line should have passed to you. Celeste stiffened. Should have? Meaning someone blocked it? Eloise's eyes flicked sideways toward Asher. Madison's breath faltered. Asher knew? You knew? Asher swallowed. I didn't know everything. I just knew the Freemans had interest in your background. They told me marrying you could benefit us both. Benefit? Madison laughed shakily. My entire life has been falling apart. Eloise sighed impatiently. Stop being dramatic. Your mother's estate, what's left of it, is worth tens of millions. The Freemans wanted access. And now that you've had children, she paused, gaze sharpening. Your triplets are the rightful heirs. Madison felt like ice water flooded her veins. My babies are heirs. To a fortune I didn't even know existed? Celeste nodded grimly. And that's why the Freemans, and now your father, want control. If they gain guardianship, they control the estate. Madison clutched her chest. So my father sold me out for inheritance? Not inheritance, Celeste corrected. Power. The radio crackled again, making Madison jump. Madison, last chance. Bring the infants to the roof. Don't make this difficult. Her father's voice had no warmth, no hesitation, no humanity. She would have wanted them with us, he added. Your mother would have understood the sacrifice. Madison felt her heart shatter. Don't you dare use her name. Celeste stepped forward. We don't respond. We fortify the NICU, secure Mrs. Hale, and call the AG's office again. But before she could finish, the overhead speakers blared a new alarm. Emergency alert. Unauthorized access detected in NICU surgical subwing. Breach level, critical. Madison froze. The babies, she whispered. They're going for the babies again. Celeste spun toward the guard. How did they reach the subwing? That area is sealed. The guard paled. Because someone inside the hospital opened it. Who? Madison cried. He hesitated, then spoke the words that made everyone go cold. The access code belonged to Rowan Pierce. For a full 5 seconds, no one in the room breathed. Rowan Pierce's name, Rowan, the one person who had protected her, fought for her, believed her, was now tied to the access breach, threatening her newborns. Madison shook her head violently. No, he'd never do that. He's unconscious. He's not even awake. The guard swallowed. That's why it's suspicious. Someone used his access code from the inside. Celeste's eyes sharpened, meaning the intruder either cloned his badge or someone with administrative control activated it remotely. End quote. Eloise raised a brow. Or maybe Dr. Pierce isn't as innocent as you all believed. Madison exploded. Shut up. Rowan saved my life. He saved my babies. Eloise's lips curved cruelly. Convenient that he passed out just as all this started. Celeste stepped between them, her voice sharp as a blade. Enough. If Rowan's credentials were used, it was because someone stole them, or someone wanted Rowan implicated to keep him from helping Madison again. She looked at Madison. This is a framing tactic, and a common one. Whoever masterminded this wants you isolated. Madison's legs trembled so violently she thought she might collapse out of the wheelchair. My father, he said, I wasn't meant to raise my own children. Rowan was the only one standing between me and all of them. They're trying to remove him too. Celeste nodded grimly. Exactly. Another alarm blared, short, sharp, nerve-shredding. A NICU nurse burst into the room, panting. We've got movement in the surgical subwing. Cameras caught a masked figure heading toward the neonatal backup generator. Madison's pulse stopped. Why the generator? Because, Celeste whispered, if the NICU loses power, the baby's life support systems switch to emergency mode, and that mode can be manipulated. Madison felt like the world was slipping beneath her feet. They'll kill them. They'll kill them to claim them. No, Celeste said, taking her trembling hands. Listen to me. They won't. They want the heirs alive. They just want the control. But if the power fails, they can force a medical transfer to a facility they control. Celeste finished. And once the babies leave this building, they disappear into Freeman custody. Permanently. Madison covered her face, sobbing. Please, someone stop them. Please. The guard grabbed his radio. All units secure the subwing. Repeat, secure. A loud crash echoed over the intercom, metal slamming metal. Then a voice shouted through static. They're cutting through the generator cage. Repeat, we have multiple intruders armed with tools. Madison let out a broken cry. Celeste turned to the guards. Get a team down there now. Eloise suddenly backed away, panic creeping into her perfect mask. She muttered under her breath, this wasn't the plan. They weren't supposed to. Celeste spun toward her. What plan? Eloise froze. Asher took a step toward her. Eloise, what didn't you tell me? But before either could answer, the hospital lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized but dimmer than before. Madison's entire body seized. Is that the generator? A security analyst in the corner paled. They're attempting a partial reroute. If they succeed, NICU will drop to minimal power. And then, a new voice crackled through the emergency channel. Not masked. Not distorted. Not her father. A woman's voice. Cold and chillingly familiar. Celeste's eyes widened. No, that's... The voice spoke. Stand down. The children are mine by right. Madison Hale forfeited her claim the moment she was born. Madison's hands slipped from the armrests. Because the voice didn't belong to Eloise. Or to her father. Or to anyone living. It belonged to someone she had buried years ago. Her mother? For a moment, the room fell into total, suffocating silence. Madison's breath caught in her throat. Her vision blurred. Her skin went cold. That voice, her mother's voice, was unmistakable. Soft, steady, sharp at the edges. A voice she hadn't heard since she was 17. Celeste reacted first, grabbing the emergency radio. Identify yourself. This channel is for authorized personnel only. But the voice repeated, with deadly calm. Madison Hale forfeited her claim the moment she was born. Return the children to the rightful bloodline. Madison's heart twisted painfully. That's not possible. My mother is dead. Dead. Eloise's face drained of color. This wasn't in the plan. This wasn't. Celeste rounded on her. What plan? Before Eloise could respond, the security analyst slammed his palms on the console. Wait, this isn't a live voice. He typed furiously, pulling up waveforms on screen. It's a deepfake, he said. A digitally reconstructed voice. Someone fed audio samples into a generator and patched it into our emergency system. If you others' family be grasses thems. Madison nearly collapsed with relief and rage all at once. So someone is pretending to be my mother, she whispered. Why? Celeste's face hardened. Because they want to destabilize you. If you break, they win. They're using the voice of the person you trusted most to manipulate you. Madison felt nausea rise. But who has audio samples of my mother? Eloise squeezed her eyes shut, guilt flashing across her features. We do. The room went still. She looked at Asher, then at Madison. Your father provided recordings from old home videos. He said it might help persuade you. Madison's stomach lurched. Persuade me to give up my children? Eloise whispered. He told us you were incapable, that you were a threat to the legacy. My mother would never, Madison broke off, voice cracking painfully. Celeste touched her shoulder. Look at me. Your mother didn't say those words. Someone weaponized her voice. Don't let them use your grief as leverage. They see Edom. Madison wiped her tears with shaking hands. Then we fight back. As if on cue, the overhead lights flickered violently, this time not dimming, but surging bright white. The analyst cursed. The intruders triggered a systems override. They're forcing NICU backup power to cycle. If it drops below threshold, the babies will go into emergency transport mode, Celeste finished. And that helicopter on the roof will be their exit. Madison's fear ignited into fire. No, no one is taking them. It's as, Celeste nodded. Then we counter their plan. She gestured to the guards. You lock down the stairwell, you secure the generator room, and someone get me a direct line to the state attorney's office. As the room erupted into frantic movement, another guard entered, breathless. We've identified the second masked figure on the roof. Celeste braced herself. Who? The guard handed her a photo pulled from the rooftop camera. Celeste's eyes widened. Dear God. She turned the screen toward Madison. It wasn't Eloise. It wasn't Asher. It wasn't her father. It was a face Madison hadn't seen in years. Her mother's sister. Her aunt? Madison gasped. Why would she? Celeste answered quietly, because your mother wasn't the only one who walked away from the inheritance. Someone else has wanted it for decades. Thank you for watching. End quote. Before Madison could process, the radio erupted again. This time, with her aunt's unmistakable, strained voice, no deepfake. Madison, if you don't bring those babies up here now, your doctor won't survive the next 10 minutes. Madison's blood froze. Rowan, she whispered. Celeste grabbed her arm. This is a bluff. Do not give in. But the radio crackled again, closer, colder. Tick-tock, Madison. Choose your heirs, or choose your protector. Lutter. 300 said. For a moment, Madison couldn't hear anything except the pounding of her own heartbeat. Her aunt's voice crackled through the radio again. Bring the heirs to the roof, or Rowan dies. Her vision blurred. Rowan, unconscious, wounded, had stood between her and every nightmare unfolding tonight. He had shielded her physically, legally, emotionally. The idea of him lying helpless while criminals negotiated his life like a bargaining chip made her entire soul combust. But Celeste Ward grabbed her shoulders firmly. Listen to me. If you go up there with those infants, none of you come back. Madison choked. But Rowan, we protect him and the babies, Celeste insisted, but not by surrendering. Asher, pale and pacing, muttered anxiously, this is getting out of control. If the Freemans hear about this, Eloise snapped. Your concern is the Freemans, not the fact that your mistress's family is committing literal kidnapping? Celeste ignored them both. She turned to the guards. We initiate Operation Medical Decoy. The head guard blanched. Ma'am, that procedure is only used during terrorist threats. This is one, Celeste said. Madison grabbed her arm. What is Operation Medical Decoy? Celeste leaned in. We move 3 incubators, but only one holds a real infant. The other 2 contain monitors and heat packs to fool sensors. Meanwhile, the real babies are transferred through a sealed service elevator to a secondary neonatal safe room. They'll be guarded by federal marshals within minutes. Madison gasped. You can do that? Celeste's eyes steeled. We already are. A NICU nurse rushed in. The babies have been moved. They're safe. Madison broke down, sobbing into her hands. Relief crashed through her body like a tidal wave. But the radio erupted again, desperate, furious, her aunt's voice cracking. Where are the children? We see the incubators, why aren't they? Then, a scream. Chaos. Shouts. The thudding sound of boots. The emergency speakers activated overhead. This is law enforcement. Roof secured. Suspect detained. Madison gasped. They got her? The guard nodded. Your aunt was apprehended. No casualties. The helicopter pilot surrendered immediately. And Rowan? Madison whispered. He's waking up, the nurse said gently, weak but stable. Her knees nearly buckled with relief. Asher let out a long, shaking breath. So, it's over. D-thumb. But Celeste turned toward him with ice in her eyes. No, Asher. Now comes the part where you face consequences. He blinked. Me? I didn't. You assisted an organized attempt to remove parental rights. You falsified insurance. You conspired with the Freemans. You endangered infants. She glanced at Eloise. And you impersonated hospital authority, tampered with records, and participated in DNA theft. Eloise paled. Security stepped forward. Celeste nodded. Take them both. End quote. Eloise screamed as one guard clasped her wrists. You can't arrest me. I'm a Freeman, by engagement. No, Celeste said, voice razor sharp. You're a criminal. Asher shook his head, backing up. I can fix this. I can explain, Madison, please. Madison finally looked at him. Really looked at him. All you ever had to do was love us, she said softly. And you chose everything but that. Asher sagged as he was cuffed. When the room cleared, Madison finally felt air return to her lungs. The NICU nurse stepped closer. He's ready for visitors now, Dr. Pierce. Madison's heart fluttered. Moments later, she entered Rowan's recovery room. He was pale, eyes half open, but when he saw her, his lips tilted into a faint, exhausted smile. You, okay? He rasped. She took his hand, tears slipping freely. Because of you. Because you didn't let them take us. He squeezed her fingers weakly. Never would. Celeste entered quietly behind her, holding a sealed envelope. Madison, this was recovered from the Freeman files. It's the last unaltered will from your mother. She left everything to you. Madison's breath trembled. The inheritance, the truth, the freedom. She turned back to Rowan, voice breaking with hope. We're safe now. He smiled, small, soft, certain. Yeah, he whispered. You are. Madison looked out the window, Manhattan lights glowing like a new beginning. Her baby's safe. Her enemies exposed. Her past reclaimed. Her future finally hers. So, that's the end of our story, my wonderful friends. And if you're still here, still listening at this very moment, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it was Madison's courage. Maybe it was her pain. Maybe it was the way she stood up when the world tried to break her. You know, the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Madison lived that truth. Everything meant to destroy her became the very thing that shaped her strength. And maybe, just maybe, you're walking through something in your own life right now. Something heavy, something unfair, something that feels bigger than you. But remember this, you are not powerless. You are not invisible. And like Madison, you can rise again. Even if you rise slowly, even if you rise shakily. Healing is not loud. Sometimes it's just choosing not to give up today. If this story made you feel understood, moved, or inspired in any way, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel. You staying until the end means more than you know. We're in this together. Always.